of the night, once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latex gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Drunk Turkey Show. This is 2 nights in a week. Wow. I haven't done that in a minute, but like I told you guys, I'll be back on a little bit more often than I was before. But as always, before we get into the program, I would like you guys, if you guys wouldn't mind, hitting that like button, hitting the subscribe button, ringing that notification bell. That way you get notified of all the other times we do go live. I do plan on going live, maybe even this weekend again for our members only. Today we got a special guest. We have quite a few topics to be talking about. But without further ado, let's bring in a friend of the show. She's been on a couple of times. Forensic Frenzy. Jasmine, how you doing? How's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a long couple of weeks. You know, work has been kind of busy. I even took a couple of weeks off there from the YouTube, but refreshed and ready to rock and roll.
Every now and then you got to take some time off of YouTube.
Oh yeah. People get crazy out there. They still get crazy, but it doesn't bother me. Yeah, especially some of the things that people say. I just kind of laugh at how much conviction some people have in certain things. It's funny.
Oh yeah.
But before we get into the conversation, I want to remind everybody in the description, also linked in the comment section, is the GoFundMe page for the Goncalves family. This is to help raise support, some money to help support them in their efforts to attend trial, for the entire 3 months that the trial will be going on. I know that, some people look at certain money that folks get from here or there. And I don't see anybody ever question anyone who, had somebody or a loved one get, passed away in a car accident or something like that, and the families are awarded significantly more money. In the same situation here, it's nobody's awarding them anything. These are donations. This is out of the generosity of the people that support them. And so I don't see what the big problem is. Make sure you go and check it out. Hit that, share it out there, support them. I've talked about it multiple times. I truly believe one of the main reasons they wanted to get out of Moscow was in efforts to limit the amount of time that the victim's family members would be present in trial in front of the jury, to limit their limit the jury seeing the victim's families. So let's don't let that happen. All righty. So with all that now out of the way, let's get into the conversation. There was a new document that had been dropped in, and this is referencing the court date. And so it appears here that jury trial shall commence starting August 11th, and that this will run through November 7th, 2025, just about a week shy of the anniversary of the murders themselves. What do you think about the hearing being started, the trial being started in August? It's moved back a little bit, but not too much. And do you think that it will, is this going to be the date, or do you think there's going to be some more movement here?
I actually don't think this judge is playing around. I think that this judge is really stern. I like it all the way around. I thought he was great that first hearing. And I think that he'll stick with this. I think he'll stand on this pretty strongly. I don't think he wanted this to begin with. So I don't think he'll move this for anything other than absolute necessity. I just don't think he wanted to even be bothered with this. I kind of recall him saying something along the lines of like, I think Ann Taylor said like maybe September then. And he was like, are you sure? Not May, So I just don't think he'll move this at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he also made a statement of, well, sometimes we have to work nights and sometimes we have to work weekends. And so I thought that he's very strict. I think that this may be a move that the defense may end up regretting in the long run. I think they had a lot more leeway with the former judge in Latah County, and here not so much. And so I all in all, I mean, you can be careful what you wish for. You might end up getting it in this situation. Sounds like that. But yeah, your take on Judge Hippler. I had the same one. I thought he was very strong. It's no nonsense kind of guy. The last, hearing that we were able to see, they were arguing. One of the arguments was the clothing. Bryan Kohberger's suits. Do you think that he'll end up winning that argument for that one particular hearing? Judge gave a temporary order that he could wear the suit. Do you think that it's going to continue?
I think that Judge Hippler made that comment about it being just for that one hearing, and then it'll be, determined as we go along from there. I think he made that comment on purpose. There might be hearings where he allows him to wear the suit, but I believe that he's looking for any reason to get him out of the suit. Just making the comment doesn't really math out to me if you're not going to stop him from wearing the suit. You know what I mean? Why even mention that it was just today and that it will be determined as we go along if you're not thinking about telling him no? So.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I thought one of the other biggest tells was the fact that he said he's going to speak with the transportation deputies and bailiffs to see about, what their thoughts are on this situation. And I've never would think that I would ever see law enforcement siding with a quadruple homicide suspect on something like clothing when safety is something that is a concern. And so I just don't see them saying, yeah, let's give this guy, let's give him his clothes and do all this other stuff that we've never done for probably anybody else.
I think there's a little something else there too that, not necessarily 100%, but there's a pretty good chance that the judge might also just be considering the fact that, well, they allowed you to wear your suit to avoid pretrial publicity. And clearly you're here in front of me. So there was negative publicity anyway, suit and all. So what difference does it make if you don't wear the suit now? The publicity is negative and it's already there. So the suit basically didn't work while he was in Latah County. So it doesn't really make sense that you would assume the suit is really helping now, right? So I think there's a number of reasons why he might be considering not allowing that.
Yeah, and also the suit was because of the amount of people in Moscow that might see him. Well, they're in Boise. There's a lot more people, which I always thought was like an odd move to go there because according to their own survey, when it comes to the percentages of bias in Boise, was within the margin of error with Latah County. And so it was like, 60 something percent of people there thought that, yeah, he's guilty for sure. 100%. Like they think he's guilty there. I think there was like 68 or 69 over here in Latah. And when you look at the population there, I mean, 500,000 people, 60% of that is, well over 250,000 of people. So, I mean, you're looking at a lot more people there. I thought they would have had a better opportunity in one of those other counties that were brought up where the bias wasn't as large. I mean, I think they brought up a couple of ones that were a little bit closer to Latah. And so my thought was, well, they're obviously trying to get away from Latah County as far as they possibly can. They have a judge that is, pretty much been in their favor, kind of bending backwards almost for the defendant. And yet they choose to still move so far away where he's no longer involved in the case because it's out of his district. So that told me there's got to be a reason, because the other place doesn't favor him when it comes to the bias part, when it comes to Boise. So my thoughts were, one, it's to, distance themselves from the victim's family members who are very out there, the Goncalves family, for one, that are out there in the media that are talking and that are present in this case. Or two, they feel that maybe perhaps if he's found guilty in Boise, the likelihood of getting the death penalty would be less, maybe not a guarantee or anything like that. It's probably still could get the death penalty there, but compared to some of these rural counties, he's probably, if he's found guilty, he's getting the death penalty. So I thought that this was a strategy for somebody who thinks they're going to end up losing. What do you think?
I actually can't disagree. But I also have another thought.
Mhm.
And I guess it just hit me like the second that she started rallying for Ada County. That is where Dylan grew up. When this happened and she ran away from Moscow to go find some safety, she went home to Boise. And I feel like it's a little strategic. Now it's not just what Dylan said or what Bryan said in Little Moscow, but rather in Dylan's own hometown. And these people might believe you right now, but you need to be able to tell your story really well on a stand and still seem believable. And I think she's trying to turn the people in Boise who may think that they're not too sure about Dylan against her. I think this has a little bit more to do with the fact that the eyewitness just so happens to be from this huge metropolitan area. It's not just that it's this huge metropolitan area. It's that a lot of people have questions for her, and this is where she's from. And most of those people are going to remember her. They're going to remember that they have questions for her because she's from there. So when we were all hearing that, you know, this one was from that place and all the victims in the house and stuff like that, we all remember hearing that Dylan was from Boise. And those Boise people remember that too. And they can't wait to hear what their community member has to say for herself, I'm sure.
Right.
One way or another, whether they're on her side or they're not. I'm sure they want to hear it. And I'm pretty sure that Ann Taylor could probably use that against Dylan.
Right. And it's possible. I mean, it's maybe even an intimidation factor to put Bryan Kohberger there if she's still there. I have no idea where she is now. But yeah, that's definitely a possibility. But when it comes to the prosecution, I'm not a lawyer. I've never been a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I've never been in a situation of like, you know, trying a case or any of those type of things. But if I was the prosecution, before Dylan took the stand, I'd be showing a little bit of evidence. I would show that 911 tape. I'd probably bring it out that nobody's heard before. And if we've listened to, for instance, Hunter Johnson at the Celebration Alive, who we know saw something, you know, he saw what was left there. And even weeks later, months later, when he's doing the Celebration Alive, this vigil, he can barely compose himself. I think we're going to hear a lot worse on that phone call of the hysteria, the crying, the panic in the voices. We're going to hear a lot of those things. And I think we're also possibly going to see maybe perhaps some interviews. And if we see somebody like Dylan who is bawling, crying, and you can see physically upset, and then she takes the stand and she's crying there because of the traumatic events that happened, I'm not necessarily certain that the best strategy for the defense is to go on the attack mode of a victim who survived this, regardless if Bryan Kohberger is guilty or not. She survived somebody going in there and killing 4 people in her home. And I'm not sure the strategy would work if they went real hard on that victim in that moment, if they're able to portray the evidence in that manner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do. I know that a lot of people believe, you know, like, well, the worst thing that a defense attorney can do is go in there and, you know, really harp on the victims, you know, whatever. But a defense attorney will actually tell you that the worst thing they could do is not go in there and harp on the victim if that's the only option that they have. Not for murder, but in my own home. I've been in a home invasion. And when I ended up on the stand, they actually did. They said that I actually opened the door for the person who invaded my home. They knew that my fiance was an attorney. And they actually said that I set the whole thing up. That was the defense's story, that I had set up for my fiance to be in this home invasion, that I was a part of it. But their other alternative was that he opened the door and that this was all a ploy on me. They actually turned it on both of us. And we were the victims, the only two victims. So there you go.
Right, but that's in the investigation phase, correct?
No, I was in trial. I was at
This
trial.
was in trial?
Yeah.
And this is from the defense side?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
so it's not
that's
impossible. I've seen it before personally. The defense, when they have no other option, will attack the victims. Yes, they will. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, but that's usually
what victimology is really all about.
Right.
Yeah, the police need to know about the victims and stuff like that. But when the defense is looking at the victims and trying to figure out their victimology, it is not so that they can figure out why those victims were actually killed. It's so that they can blame those victims for being killed.
Right. Right. No, I don't disagree with you there. But I do agree with you that if you don't have anything else, that's your last option, because I don't think it's a strong one to begin with. Just like this whole alibi crap that he's been pulling, him saying, "Oh, I need to see what the prosecution has first before I tell you where I was at," is not one that a strong defense would make. That's not a stance a strong defense would make. Neither would be attacking a victim. And so, like I mentioned, if there is nothing else other than that's all you have is blame the victim or blame the cops. Oh, the cops framed me. They did it. They killed him, and they killed him to frame Bryan Kohberger. If that's all you have, it's really not a lot, like at all. And so, it would just be another sign of a weak case, in my opinion. And I don't think it would bode well for the defense and the eyes of the jurors. I think that especially if they present Dylan in the right light, and they put up those pieces of evidence that nobody has seen, where it shows how hysterical she may have been. Because remember, I think the initial call, there was somebody else who had also passed out. I think rumors were it was either Dylan or Bethany may have passed out. If that is true as well, and they needed medical attention for those type of things, that there's a report of that. I mean, those are, I think that just builds a little bit more stronger of a case for them that they weren't involved. But yeah, I can definitely see that the defense, like you mentioned, if you have nothing else, I guess that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, you wonder, is she going to attack Dylan? And maybe that's, all a part of her strategy. But so far, from what I gather, there were others who the police looked into. So then they were victims. So if the police were looking into them, Ann Taylor's going to have something to work with there too. So.
Yeah. No, I think it's been brought up a couple of times that they were looking into some people. They even spoke about how they surreptitiously removed a cigarette butt from one person to go and test for DNA. I think Howard Bloom spoke about, to me, that he had information how police were looking at everybody and anybody, a bunch of dead ends, a bunch of people that had criminal records. They even looked at the person who sold or the previous owner of the Range Rover that Kaylee had purchased. That was also a dead end. All these things just kind of indicate to me that they really didn't know who Bryan Kohberger was until the genealogy came back. The genealogy comes back on December 19th, December 20th. I think it was the 19th, if my memory serves me correct. And I think it was Detective Payne stated that the first time he spoke with the WSU officer who ended up finding Bryan Kohberger's vehicle was December 20th. He hadn't spoken to him before then. He hadn't known who he was. He talked to him then. And the reason why, in my mind, they did that is because on the 19th, they got his name. They probably ran his information, said, hey, look, license plate, everything matches. Hey, this guy went over there and actually looked at this vehicle. We need a reason to have been looking at him. We can't say it's the genealogy because it's not It is not something that you is admissible in court. So you can't use that. We have to have a reason as to why we're looking for him. And well, here we go. We have this WSU officer who went out there, located the vehicle at one point. It's probably not the only vehicle he located. It was probably one of several different white vehicles that matched the description of what they were looking for. And they utilized that situation as being the finding point. But to me, I think that it all boils down to that genealogy, right? When it came to that aspect. And so all the other people that they had, yeah, I mean, it didn't pan out. In fact, I think there was one of the defense's arguments was the 3 unknown DNA samples, 1 in the glove outside, 2 in the inside of the house somewhere. In one of the hearings in Latah County before it was moved back, one of the last ones, the prosecution came up and stated that they did the work on the DNA profiles at the request of the defense. The only DNA that the defense brought up were those 3 unknown samples, which, made me think, and the timing in which Ann Taylor had brought up those samples, which allowed the prosecution to go to work and figure those out before the hearing, I thought was questionable. As far as, I think it would have been more powerful if you waited on that information until the actual hearing or trial itself. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too.
There's a lot there that I think has actually gone not well for Bryan Kohberger. Changing the judge, doing those things, the cast information, bringing all this stuff up and how there's a problem with it, and even having their own expert witnesses saying that it's fixable. I think that you want to wait for that in trial too, right? Not do that in a pre-trial hearing where the prosecution can fix it.
Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah.
I agree. So what is your opinion of Ann Taylor's performance thus far as a defense attorney?
So I can't say that Ann Taylor is not zealous. She is super zealous. She does her job. You can't be mad at her for doing her job. Does she have to whimper and whine at me while she does it? Probably not, but she does her job. As far as they say, what the hell is that thing they say? They say, if you have good facts, you argue the facts. And if you have bad facts, you argue the law. So that's where I question, what it really means for her to be being a good lawyer in this way, because she's doing a really good job at arguing the law, if you ask me, not so much the facts. And as far as I'm concerned, I hear her when she says things like Bryan was west and he was south and he was near the park and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that she's lying, right? What I am saying is that wasn't moving enough. So if you want me to believe you, I'm sorry, we're going to need some more, something other than that. But she does her job. She does her job really well. Right now, it just seems like her job is arguing the law, not the facts. What that means, hey, foreshadowing, maybe that just means her client doesn't have the best story to tell. Maybe he's innocent with just not the best story to tell. Maybe he's guilty. So there you go.
Yeah. No, I had questioned it myself, to be honest with you. I thought that she was a little bit premature in a lot of the things that she has done and said in a manner in which that those things can be either looked into, rectified, or completely debunked. And so I just think that a lot of those things that she was saying would have had a lot more power if they were still the same, if there was still 3 unknown DNA samples inside of that, that area come the time trial starts, if there was still, which I can't see the prosecution not trying to figure out who they are, just because, I mean, obviously they brought it up in a hearing. I would have thought that, hey, they're obviously going to bring this up. They can see this, but we're going to have to, do the work on these DNA samples already. And so, to me, I just think that the timing's a little bit off at the end of it. But I'm moving on from Ann Taylor and the Bryan Kohberger situation there, and moving on to your channel. I saw a video on your channel not too long ago. It's pretty interesting, referencing some viewers on your channel, and maybe maybe some, maybe I didn't understand it all. And so, could you explain what it is that you were looking for and what it is that you found when you were looking at the analytics of your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So I had been warned a few months ago that they say these things ambiguously. They don't tell me who, they don't tell me what, right? So they are watching your channel, and that's all I got. So every once in a while I pop into my analytics. Obviously, as a YouTube creator, every once in a while you pop in if you want to like check on your performance and stuff like that. But knowing that I was told that they were watching, right? Every once in a while I pop into my analytics and I look to see if I can catch them. And so far I hadn't been able to. So when people were telling me that, I was like, well, maybe not, and that's why I kept running my mouth and saying whatever the fuck I wanted to on my YouTube channel, because it was literally like, maybe not,
Yeah.
Probably about 2 weeks ago, though, I had noticed in my analytics that there was this external link. And it explains to you the way that people find you externally, pretty much. So you go in and you look at how people find my videos, and it'll tell you like Facebook, X, Google search, and I noticed that in my last 28 days from the day that I was doing this, not today, obviously, but that Idaho.gov was in there. Idaho, IDAHO.gov, not the abbreviated ID.gov, the actual full state name, .gov, was in my external links and apps. So knowing what that meant, I obviously went into YouTube Studio and went into my frequently asked questions to make sure I knew what that meant. And essentially what that means is that something from my channel had been pulled and inserted into Idaho.gov. So in their internal website, something from my channel exists. So I wanted to find out what it was. And the only way to do that is to find out how long they've been watching. So I went back and I had assumed that it probably would have been around the time of the Garrett Discovery interview, but it wasn't. And then I maybe thought, okay, maybe not in August when I did the interview, but maybe in April when I had first mentioned Garrett Discovery and possibly doing an interview. But it wasn't then either. It was months before that. So in November of 2023, I opened my channel on the 3rd, to be exact. I'm giving you dates because if people actually want to go back and watch all the videos that they've watched, they can at least find them based on the date. I opened my channel on November 3rd. On November 20th, I got my first 11 views from Boise, Idaho. Ever since November 20th of 2023, I never get any more than 11 views from Boise. It's not all the time. It's certainly not on every video. In fact, it's on a very small portion of my channel's content. So they've watched from Boise specifically, I think 13 videos out of 121 or 2 that I have on my channel. So it's very, very specific content that they are watching. And then I decided to reach out and start finding out where does this go, this Idaho.gov. And I was informed that pretty much anyone with credentials can log in to Idaho.gov. Obviously, you have to work for the organization, but you would have your credentials, you log in and you can see the things that are in there. Obviously, there would be very specific people. So I started looking for anyone out there who could help me figure out all the domains and stuff like that these different government entities and offices use in their buildings. I learned very quickly that all the smaller, like law enforcement offices and stuff like that, they have like a county domain that goes along with them. It is a portion of idaho.gov, but they get something like, for example, Moscow.id, the abbreviation for Idaho.gov. They don't get Idaho spelled out .gov. It works the same way with like Kootenai County and stuff like that. So Lewis.idaho.gov, but it would be Lewis.id.gov. Idaho spelled out in its entirety.gov belongs to the higher up actual like state government officials. Okay. So then I started looking around to see, now that I know that it has to be someone in the higher up state government whose offices are in Boise. Obviously, Boise is, you know, the main region there. So duh. Everyone, right? The governor, obviously the Ada County Courthouse is there, but the governor, the AG's office, it's stuff like that. The AG is actually a part of this case. So that makes sense. They are working with the prosecution. So I'm now led to believe it is the AG's office that is watching my channel from Boise. So with that in mind, I reached out some more to make sure. And I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure it is. And then we went in to find out, okay, who else is watching? Because we know Bryan was also in Washington, and I've been accusing him of doing things in Washington. So it's just out of curiosity, right? So I overlapped. I won't tell you which city in Washington because it'll give away the government entity that is watching, and I don't want to do that. But I overlapped a specific city in Washington with a specific city in Pennsylvania and Boise. And again, they're all watching the same content. So get this, every 6 weeks or so, they watch a video, and they all just so happen to watch the exact same video. So then I started overlapping some major police entities, like some major law enforcement entities from other places that I know for a fact were involved, because I've heard it not only in the pressers from the cops, but from the families as well. And again, they all match. And I don't get views from these places. I don't have fans in these places. I get no other views from these places any other times. They're all watching the exact same content on the exact same day with the exact same number of days and videos published in between without watching. So it was November 20th of 2023, November 25th of 2023, December 12th of 2023, December 15th of 2023, and December 27th of 2023. And by now, I have law enforcement in 5 different places watching my channel. And this was long before I ever spoke to any of the families or did the Andrew Garrett thing or any of that. So we've gotten together, my team and others that I've contacted out in Idaho, to actually get to the bottom of where are the domains coming from, because, or I'm sorry, who belong under each of these domains, because that's the only way to figure out who might be watching. So for example, do you really think the governor is watching me? Or do you think it's more likely that it would be the Attorney General's office?
Right.
Right. So we were able to do a little, it took some trial and error, but we were able to figure it out. And then the Idaho Attorney General's office obviously reached out to someone in Washington, someone in Pennsylvania, and the other police agencies followed suit. You can tell when you put it into my analytics that it started in Boise, Idaho, and then the other cities followed suit, and they're all watching the exact same content.
Good deal. Wow. And, you know, I know we spoke a little bit about it before the show. I went onto my analytics, and Boise is there too for me, which I wasn't too shocked by. But right now, when you mentioned Washington and a special state or city in Washington, I think I'm familiar with where, and I have that place as well, also in Pennsylvania. And so that's interesting. It's interesting that you put it that way. November 2023. That was quite a while ago. That was way before your Andrew Garrett interview. I know what your stance is now, but what was your stance then?
So actually back then, I had started the channel. I was just trying to clear up the bullshit, you know. Everyone was in the house. They were asleep. It was obvious that everyone in the house was not asleep. So I was trying to clear up stupid shit like that. But other than that, I wanted to make sure that people at least had an opportunity to think about the fact that there might be someone else involved. And I think people were ignoring all the blank the documents that don't say anyone's name, like not a victim, not Bryan. So at that point, my thoughts were, this redacted person's got to be the other guy. And those are the videos that law enforcement is watching. The ones where I insisted that all of those warrants, including the Amazon one, with no name on them, the ones that don't specifically say Bryan, even though we know that's the defendant's name, I was insisting back then that those documents indicated that someone else had also probably done this. I talked about the fact that the vehicle is outside moving, but Dylan is allegedly hearing things above her head, which the police now believe is Kaylee and Maddie being attacked. There was so much that I covered in those videos, because some of those videos were actually videos where I embedded multiple of my videos that went together. So they watched 13 specific videos in Boise, but those 13 videos had multiple videos inside of them that all drive toward a secondary perpetrator. So that's where I started this. And after a while, I let that theory go. But now looking back at what it is that they are watching, I now have questions.
See, and so here's where I think, and this is just my opinion. You hold a lot of credibility based on your experience. You've also been associated with attorneys that have also looked into this case. You also have obvious experience and knowledge and know how they're not ignorant to law and things of that nature, like majority of the Kohberger channels are. Like, let's be real. Majority of those, they just somebody behind a camera. I've never been in law enforcement, don't know anything about the court system or how it works. Don't know. Some of them don't even know how our Constitution works. And so if I saw somebody, and if I was the prosecutor or the attorney general, and I know I saw somebody say, hey, you know, I'm from Boise. So, you know, this is one of your reviews from Boise. I think just to kind of clarify that, you saw that it was coming from Idaho.gov as a link to your video being watched. So that's why there's that connection there. But if I was the attorney general, the prosecution, or some sort of agency or enforcement or office or whatever the case may be that is monitoring this case, and I'm not the defense, which it didn't sound like it, the reason why I would be looking at those type of things is in preparation. I mean, I'm seeing, all right, this is a person who knows what they're talking about, has an influence with attorneys. Could this be a real way that Ann Taylor and her defense team could try to defend Bryan Kohberger, utilizing some of the things that you're saying, and maybe be able to develop a game plan to be able to overcome some of the things that may come out in court? And so that was where I first went to it. Do you think that's possible?
I've had that conversation, not only with you, but with others. The possibility that the attorney general could be looking to kind of get an idea, maybe just looking at it and saying, this is a normal person. She actually does think that he's probably guilty. These are the things that she would be willing to listen to consider his innocence. And maybe they're just looking for those things out of me. I don't really see why they would pick me out of all the people. There's other people. There's other attorneys. There's, other victims' families. There's not our 4 victims here, but like other people who have had a family member in the past They're on the internet talking about this. I just don't know why they would pick me specifically. But I also thought maybe it was Ann Taylor, but I wasn't sure why she would pick me, you know, but possibly just looking to tell herself, you know, this person thinks my client's guilty, but this person's also said that if I tell her this, 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 and this, she'd change her mind. So it could have been anyone. That was why we got the domain list, so that we could be sure which offices use which domain, because it eliminated Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor is absolutely not idaho.gov for sure. But also I wanted to clarify, because we didn't get there yet, that even though they watch these very specific videos on my channel, what they actually encapsulated and embedded into their intranet was not just one video or those videos. It was the entire channel. So they now have all 120 of my videos. It's my entire channel is embedded in their intranet. So they have everything that I said, but the only things that I can look back on and confirm that they definitely watched are, strangely enough, the things that pertain to another perpetrator.
Right. That's interesting. That's interesting. You know,
I just wanted to respond to the comment. Marilyn from Tarot Clarity, she says, they're probably watching a lot of channels. I actually caught them, you know, right in my external links. And I wasn't like trying to be braggy or anything. I was bringing that to the internet's attention so that other creators could go back and see if they can find them in there too, because then we can know what kind of content outside of my own they actually are watching. I wanted people to know about that, so maybe they could dig in and see. That was the first thing Daniel did when I told him, and that was what I wanted him to do. Dig in there and let me know if you are a content creator. If you can find that idaho.gov under your external links and apps, and maybe just like even post it in the community thing so that everyone can know, you know, that the government is watching and we can know what it is that they're watching.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'm trying to figure out how to get to the external links aspect. I see where the cities are on mine. I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world. I have to get with you after the show to see those external links or get to that part. Cause I'm interested in seeing that, because, you know, another part of me thought maybe the prosecution or the attorney general is just trying to see if anybody is violating the non-dissemination order, the gag order. That, you know, that could be a possibility. You know, I've said a lot of things that came out well before they came out publicly, and so that's why I'm interested in wondering if it's going to populate here. Like,
Can I present?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't mind showing my YouTube analytics. I don't make a gazillion dollars or anything like that on YouTube, so there's no way that anybody can possibly, you know. Go ahead if you could pop that up for me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you go into when you click analytics here, okay, it'll take you into your overview. I click content here, and then I go down to how viewers find your videos, and you can click see all, but you can also just, sorry guys, I am a little sick. You can also just click external and then see more. And the last 90 days will pop up here. And these are all the places where someone stuck my YouTube channel or a video from it, where technically it doesn't belong, right? So someone shared something on Facebook, Moscow Murder Massacre.blogspot.com. I don't even know what the hell that is, but somebody shared my stuff there. Discord, you know, you see websleuths.com. So these are places where someone took my content or the channel itself and put in a link or a video or something on something else. Okay. All the way at the bottom though, there it is. Okay. Idaho.gov. Can you see? Oh, are we in the way?
Oh yeah. Let me move us out of the way.
Okay. And then when you go back up, it'll tell you the date that they started the whole thing. So here is the day that they actually embedded my channel into their intranet. which so happened to be the day after the state's discovery deadline, which goes in accordance with this being the Attorney General's office that's watching. But so that's how you find that. You just go from, I can do it again, from your analytics to your content, down to how viewers find your videos, external, see more, and then expand your number of days, just so that you can cover more time. I can go over the lifetime of my channel because my channel hasn't been around for that long. And you, even in my lifetime situation, when you go all the way to the bottom and you click them, you still see that it was once. They watched several times, but on this day, September 7th, my channel and its content became externally linked to Idaho.gov. So they were watching for months beforehand. And then the day after the state discovery deadline, my channel ended up embedded in their intranet.
That's crazy.
So that's pretty much, yeah. So that's pretty much just that, and how you can find it.
Yeah, I'm going through them now. I don't see Idaho.gov yet on mine where I'm at. I just see like a tremendous amount of different places. I've never seen this before. This is a lot of good information. Wow. This is awesome. Amazing. I had no idea that this was out there. I mean, somebody sent me on, that might be somebody's name. I'm not going to say that. That's weird if it would actually give me somebody's personal information like that. Godlike.com. That's weird. But yeah, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. But no, I don't have any Idaho.gov on mine. And so, oh wait, never mind. It only shows me 50 of 500. So there's a possibility.
So what you have to do then is hit the export button. It goes into a spreadsheet. You have to like expand the spreadsheet, break it up. I had to do this for days. I literally had to put a team together in order to even figure out how to, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So there's probably a good possibility that they are there then, because this is 10% of the external links that have been, I guess our channel's been sent to. That's insane. Wow.
It is, because sometimes it's like, what is this thing that, like, I don't mind that you used my stuff, but I would love to know who you were. I don't even know who you are,
Right. Yeah. See, let me narrow it down to 90 days because I put lifetime. Yeah, I gotta do a bunch of things. External links, yada yada yada. That's crazy. I had no idea any of this was. You could see this. I knew I could see the geography and the cities and all those other things. I've done that multiple times. But yeah, I got a few places. Some of the places you mentioned: Pennsylvania, Washington, Boise, Idaho. Another place in Washington. So I got like two different places. Three places in Washington.
Yep. But there's like one in specific that the viewer number is really, really tiny. And each time these other places are watching, it goes up like 3 or 4, which is the exact number of viewers that I'm expecting from them. So like, for example, in Seattle, I might get 1,200 views typically. Right.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden I'm getting 1,207. Right. Yeah. And every time it's one of these videos that they're watching, I get the increase of 7. So I know that it's either one person watching and they're watching 7 times, or it's, they're passing it around between a few people and each person's watching a couple times or something like that. But it's always a very small number of people in that area. So like I said, 10 viewers in Boise is weird, first of all. But the idea to think that like all 10 of these viewers are skipping the same content, but watching the same content, that's weird too. If I just had fans, you would expect that they would be watching sporadically. that they're not all watching. What the hell are they, a fan club, and they literally sit down together in the living room and watch Forensic Frenzy? There's no way. So there is something to it, and it made me suspicious right away. But then I reached out and we started doing like the domain searches. I actually started calling government offices to make sure that I knew what their domain was. And that was how we kind of narrowed it down. From there, it was literally like, well, who do you think is literally watching you? Governor Brad Little or the Attorney General's office? And at that point, it's just kind of stupid to think that it's anyone other than, you know what I'm like, who the hell else would care?
Right. Right. Heather brings up a comment saying it happened to another YouTube channel, another channel you and I know. I'm fairly positive I know which one you're talking about, but that one also has a little bit more credibility than some of these other folks. The one I think you're referencing to is another person that's been on the channel, Truth and Transparency. She's done a lot of FOIA reports and information. It's gotten a lot of like dash cam footage and stuff like that. I think she worked as a in the legal sense, I think as a paralegal or something to that nature. So she has some experience and information, a bit more credibility than what would be, I don't know, weird guy.
And she ran the Kopaka shit way before I did, like way before I watched it originally on her channel. So there's, you know what I mean? Like, so if it happened to her, that makes sense, because at one point in time, she was talking about a second person if Kopaka had been involved. That was why she dug out the FOIA to find out why he had been killed and stuff like that. So it makes sense that they would do it to her. But then again, you have to think about that. If they did it to her and they did it to me and they were doing it based on like some of the same content and it all pertains to Kopaka being involved, then what the fuck is that? I'm sorry. Jesus, I don't mean to be cussing on you. I'm so sorry. But what does that actually tell you? You know what I mean? Right. They're not just digging in her channel and digging in my channel just for fun.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, to me, this kind of just goes along with, I would think, if this is the prosecution trying to find avenues in which you could try this, because, you know, I think that maybe there's the thought, could it possibly be law enforcement looking at the possibility of somebody else being involved in trying to get ideas from others? And I'm not sure if that they would go that route, just given the fact that they have the evidence in front of them that we're not privileged to and would know things. To me, I think the biggest advantage would be from the prosecution side in determining a way for a possibility in which a manner that somebody might actually try this case, you know, as from a defensive side. So that way they're not, you know, in a situation where something comes up from a legality point and they don't know how to correspond or react to it.
Now, what's interesting to me, I just wanted to, before I forget, remember when Howard Bloom told, I think it was you, I'm pretty sure it was you. But he had also stated it like in his book and stuff that Ann Taylor was interested in the drug angle, the drug aspect, right? I've never spoken about that on my channel. So if they're looking for ways that she might defend her client, I don't know if they're going to find that on my channel. Yeah, I've said things that could help her client. I've said things that could create a defense for him. Probably just because I try to be fair. And I mean, there are things that he could say that would change my fucking mind. So, you know, I have said those things, but I just don't know why they would choose my channel over anyone else's. I just don't feel like, as far as defending him, that I defend him nearly as hard as these other people do. You know that. And why not go with some of the things that his supporters, if you want to defend him, why not try to go with some of the things that his supporters say? Because if they rally enough, mistrial. If they rally enough, hung jury, you know? So, I mean, his own supporters could actually defend him. She doesn't have to look at my channel. They don't have to figure out my channel to do that. And then it was just the idea that it wasn't Bill Thompson. That to me is interesting as well. Why is it not Bill? Why is it not, what's the other one's name? Ashley? Why is it not her? Specifically, it would look like it's coming from the Attorney General's office. That's, like I said, I'm 99% sure of that. That would be like Jeff Nye, Ingrid Beatty, what's her name?
Emma Bailey?
Is it Ingrid? I think her name is Ingrid. No, the Attorney General.
Oh, yeah.
Ingrid Beatty,
Oh,
I think is her name.
I'm not sure.
There's another one. There's a couple that are actually assigned to Bryan's situation, but it would be those people. It's not Bill Thompson. So it's just very interesting to me. And then I guess you kind of, Ingrid Beatty. Yep. Someone told me. Yeah. So there you go. It's those people, not Bill Thompson, not, Ashley Jennings. Like I said, it's interesting to think that it's not the people that are actually even speaking for the state when we hear these hearings. It's the people that are quietly somewhere else just assisting the state. That's who captured my channel, those people. So they're passing this along to Bill Thompson.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form.
Well, maybe they have the same concerns that I do. The fact that maybe perhaps Bill Thompson and this prosecution hasn't tried a case like this. I mean, we know that for a fact. They haven't tried a case similar to this in Latah County in a while. I mean, I think they've had some unsolved murders and things of that nature, and people do things that are bad. But a quadruple homicide in the middle of the night where there's 2 survivors and, all the complicatedness that comes with this case, the high publicity, all that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised that the Attorney General is trying to be, proactive and saying, hey, this is an angle that they can come in at, and this is why it's being sent out from one location to another. Because those external links means that that's how they sent it out. Like I saw one was like Facebook Messenger, and that was one of the ones that was pretty high. So that means that somebody went onto the page, put the share button, and then went onto Facebook and clipped it or shared it directly from there to their Facebook Messenger. And so to me, that means that if they're on perhaps a government site, government equipment, whether it be phone or laptop, and then from there send it out to specific people, that would make the most sense. And I think we wouldn't be able to determine if, let's just say they sent it out to prosecutor Bill Thompson, and it would show her link because it's sent from there and not necessarily his because it was received from wherever he got it from. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that does make sense to me then. And again, I think that the reason why they would choose people like yourself or Elena from Truth and Transparency is because you guys aren't some random dude living in his mom's basement somewhere, talking about me all the time because they love me. You know what I mean? You're an actual person who has experience in the legal system. You know how things work. You know how things can be perceived or tried, or even how somebody could utilize certain pieces of evidence in their favor. I mean, you look at what Lena has been doing with her channel and stuff like that, with the FOIA reports and what's being said. I just really, really think that I think it would be very ignorant from the prosecution to not look into things like that from credible individuals who might actually have something that could possibly be said in court, because nobody's going to go in there, and Taylor ain't going to go in there and say, hey, we have this 35-year-old pretending to be a 20-year-old said that she saw people smoking pot at 8 a.m. That's not going to come out. Like all this bull crap and the people saying, oh, I hear this in the Linda Lane footage, or I hear that, or oh, there's a person sitting in there for like 6 hours in the freezing cold. It's all a bunch of bull crap. And that's not, none of that's going to come out. And they're not looking at all that bull crap. They're going to be looking for the possibility of a real defense strategy. And I would look at people that have credibility. I wouldn't look at, I don't want to put anybody's names out there, but we all know, the one that likes to get tickled a lot. And so, when we'll leave that at that, but I saw,
and if I'm not mistaken, didn't Truth and Transparency, didn't she also call the police? Right? Like I called the police on the Garrett discovery document, but if I'm not mistaken, Truth and Transparency also called the police, and left like information on the tip line. And that could also be what drew them to us. We both reported to the tip line. So
that's possible. You know, I didn't report anything a long time ago. What did I get that I put in? Oh yeah. I had gotten some information from the about the potential DoorDasher, and that I had gotten reported out there, and I even sent that information to other people that we both are familiar with. Let's see. So Diana HB comes in with a $5 super chat. She says, Forensic Frenzy, Daniel, have you heard or looked into the user Josco1972? This video is insane, and it's from December 2022. I think it's BK. I think that's the guy who there was like he was on TikTok, and there was like a reflection, and he's talking about that he knows people close to the case. They found a knife sheath. They did this. They did that.
Okay. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I have seen it then. Yes, I have seen it. Yep. Okay.
Let me look up something real quick. Because
it was kind of like dark, sort of, so you kind of couldn't, or so he thought, you couldn't see him that well.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it.
Let me see something. What was that? What was that lady's name? The one that they thought it was Joyce, not Janet.
LePage?
Yes. What year did she disappear?
Oh boy.
I mean, if it was 1972, that's going to be weird.
No, I think it was later than that.
71. Wait. Yeah, 1971.
Mm-hmm. But I'm also working on that as well. And possibly. I don't know as far as if it is or is not BK. I don't know. But I am also, so just so you know, Idaho government, as well as Washington, just letting you know, I am also coming for Lance if he is the Zodiac and or if he killed Kristen David or Joyce LePage. Just know I reached out to the tip line about that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just so you know, I am actually working on that. I think someone else, I think that was related with Ted Bundy, but I actually think someone else killed Joyce LePage.
Yeah. No, I do too. I just think that there was a couple of connections there to Pullman, Washington, when it comes to some unsolved crimes and things of that nature, some serial killers that have been somewhat close. Like, I don't think that it's another coincidence that he went through the Teton Mount area through Colorado and those areas. And that's also the areas in which Ted Bundy was in after. Mm-hmm. So, the path that he took going home was very similar to the path that Ted Bundy took after leaving the areas in Washington that he was at. And so, there's a lot of coincidences there. Now, when it comes to this guy, Josco 1972, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty close. The voice is pretty close to what we've seen on, in the traffic stops that he's had. The one with the female where he was kind of talking a little bit. The voice does kind of sound similar. It would be a way of a killer inserting himself into the crime scene or inserting himself into the crime. Now, in the past, this has been done a number of ways, whether somebody has gone out there for a search for victims that are lost, that they are missing, that they know what has happened, or revisiting the crime scene, or perhaps trying to deflect from themselves onto a different area or another direction. And this could be a new way of doing that, so to speak. With now it's high tech, technology, maybe perhaps. And when you see that, you see somebody who's trying to deflect it, come up with some lies, maybe have some information that is somewhat true. I don't know. I do think that it would have been looked into, and if it is him, that's going to come out in trial. What do you think?
I agree. I see that there were some people in the comments talking about Papa Roger. If that's Bryan, he is also going to be caught for that. I do know that people have said that Papa Roger was like active since Bryan was arrested. I don't know how many of you guys have gone back and watched the TikTok video where the girl actually goes through both of those accounts, and she absolutely shows you that those are not the same account at all. The one that was active after Bryan's arrest is not the same one that was active before Bryan's arrest. So they're not the same account. So now I don't know if Papa Roger was or was not active after Bryan's arrest. But
it's possible.
Papa Roger on Facebook and Papa Roger and on another platform could be the same person. It could be two totally different people. I don't really know. As far as any of these people being Bryan, look, I won't say it is, but I will put it like this, and it's pretty simple. Okay. Debate it with yourselves, guys, because I'm not here to debate it with you. There's a reason why his attorney doesn't ever let him say a word. Okay. Like, and I wish you would, don't even bother starting with when he's in court, he's not supposed to be talking, because defendants do it all the time, out loud to their attorney, out loud to the judge, out loud. Bryan doesn't speak. There was the body cam footage with the officer. There was an eyewitness who heard a voice. There is the phone call from, I think a lot of people forget about that too, but I don't. But the phone call, remember the girl from Supercuts who was like, oh, I was supposed to cut his, or she did cut his hair.
Yeah.
And he left her a voicemail, and she like played it on the media.
Yeah, I remember that.
We actually have quite a few voice samples from Bryan Kohberger, and maybe that's a part of why he doesn't speak. So I won't say that any of these people are him, but if they are him, maybe that's why he doesn't speak, because we don't need people comparing what they hear you saying in court to what they heard you say on that phone call and on that voicemail, trying to prove that it's your voice. Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's a pretty big possibility. That definitely is. Connor asks, the Josco a YouTube channel? I believe that's a TikTok channel. I do got a couple of.
It is a TikTok. Yep.
Yes. If you have any questions, put a couple of stars. We only got a few more minutes. I don't want to take too much of Jasmine's time, but I did have to see some questions. I think I saw one for you. Crime Solver says, I hope this is okay to ask. I used to watch Forensic when she was on the other side, thinking BK was perhaps innocent. Curious to know what, if any, specific events shifted her thoughts. Thank you. So was there a specific moment when you, and I think we did talk about this before in the past, but for those that weren't here last time, what was the specific moment that made you believe, all right, this guy more than likely committed this crime?
When I started my channel, I did not think Bryan was innocent. I have not thought that at all the entire time that I've had a YouTube channel. So I just want to clarify that, because people say that to me all the time. I used to watch you when I thought that you thought Bryan was innocent, and I don't know why you ever thought that.
I get that too.
So I just want to clarify that, and I'm not being mean or anything like that. I just want you to know my honest truth. That's not what I thought. Not a moment, not a video, not since I started this channel. I did think Bryan was innocent though at one point. That was before I started my channel. At the time that I started my channel, I thought Bryan was the orchestrator and that someone else had been possibly the actor. And if not, that he had had help inside the house. So I've always thought that, since starting this channel, at least, that he had something to do with something, right? That he at least knew something, that he drove the car. And it doesn't matter if he did just drive. You also didn't call the police after you knew someone came back out from slaughtering 4 people. So they're going to find him guilty. Okay. Just so you guys know, even if he is just the driver. Okay. But I didn't, he didn't really fully lose me. I think until he told me he was at the park. And it was kind of like, oh, so Haley from Tinder was right when she said that you were a gaslighter. Okay, cool. So you were gaslighting me when you said you were going to be exonerated, and I believed you then. And then you thought you were going to gaslight me all over again by saying you were at the park. where Joyce's body was found in the canyon. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, sure, Bryan. I'll let you reignite me all over again. So I just refused after that. That's actually really where he 100% lost me. But it was somewhere back at like waiving his speedy trial that I was like, oh yeah, he definitely has no story for himself. And I don't know. I refuse to refute reality. He didn't have a story for himself from the beginning. They took the evidence out of, if you guys go back and look at the actual case summary, he took the evidence out of lockup for months and months and months and months and months to come out with, I was west of Moscow, south of Pullman. I was near the park. I was driving around alone. That is the worst case scenario as far as gaslighting me. That's awful. That's awful. So he lost me for sure with that. But I was confused about his entire stature from the moment that he waived his preliminary, his speedy trial. And I think the reason why is because the state didn't have their shit together back then. He could have beat this back then, if you ask me. That's my honest opinion. They didn't have enough together back then to send him off to the death penalty. Asking for more time, he screwed himself. And that's just not something that someone, I don't know. It just didn't seem like the innocent person thing to do. And then I realized that he was gaslighting me when he took me to Wawawi County Park. So.
Yeah. That's a pretty, the alibi stuff and those things were pretty convincing, especially to me as well. I get that also a lot. I get a lot of people say, oh, I used to think he was innocent until I met the Goncalves family. And then I think he's guilty. And that's far from the truth. One thing I like to remind people is, do you think the Goncalves family would have really contacted me if I thought Bryan Kohberger was innocent?
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. That makes zero sense.
And to tell you the honest to God truth, it's like, I didn't think Bryan was innocent at least 8 months before I ever even spoke to the Goncalves family. I actually spoke to them for the first time after I called Garrett Discovery in April. That's why they reached out to me. They were like, hey, what's up with that company? So just so people know, that's where we actually linked up at. It was at Garrett Discovery way back in April. And for months before that, you guys, I had been calling Bryan the fucking orchestrator. Like, how can I have thought he was guilty? He was innocent. If I was in every way, shape, and form, I had stated my thoughts very, very clearly. I do think that maybe some of the crowds, some of the people whose, shows I was on back at that point, they do think still that Bryan is innocent. Just because I'm friendly and I can, talk to people who have differing opinions, I didn't think those things that those people thought. I don't have to argue everything that someone thinks that I don't agree with. I'm a normal person. I like to go on about my life with my own opinions. I don't really give a shit what anyone else's are. So I didn't argue with those people about the fact that I thought Bryan was guilty. Meanwhile, they thought he was innocent. And maybe that is why people thought that I came to the platform with the idea that Bryan was innocent. But I just want everyone to know that. No need to leave those cute little comments anymore. Like, I used to watch you when you thought Bryan was innocent. Because it's like, I laugh at that a little bit. And the reason why is because I don't know when you ever watched me and I thought Bryan was innocent. Those two things did not go together. Ever.
Yeah, well, those people are the ones that are delusional about the evidence as well. So I'm not surprised that they're delusional about what they saw from the channel. For me, I always thought Bryan Kohberger did it. And I've said that multiple times. Now, I questioned whether or not he was going to be found guilty in the beginning portion when the PCA came out, because I thought there were some holes in the PCA. Now, me being prior law enforcement, it's, I know some things and how things work, as far as how strategy, investigative techniques, things of that nature. But at the same time, it's been over a decade, almost closer to 2 now, that have actually been in law enforcement. So some things have changed. Technology has changed and things of that nature. And so back in the day when I was in law enforcement, cast and triangulation was the way that they caught people. And so when I looked at the triangulation, the casting that they were saying and everything else that was going on, I was like, all right, well, I mean, there's some question marks here. There's some question marks there. And Howard Bloom came out with his airmail article that stated that the DNA was degraded, that it took Othram to go in there, find the DNA, that they didn't even find it. That's what Howard Bloom said, that they didn't even find it. Othram found it, which is not what the PCA says. The PCA says that it was discovered by the Idaho State Lab. And so what Othram did was they started the genealogy aspect of it. And the reason why they started it was because, and not the FBI, it's because in the documents that the state provided referencing the genealogy, it states there that FBI policy and protocol is that they cannot get involved with the genealogy thing until all other law enforcement techniques and suspects have been exhausted, meaning that they don't have anybody else. So what that tells me is that at some point, while they were still trying to get this Othram lab to get the head start on it, they ran out of options and they had no idea who it was. And so that's why the FBI then gets involved. And so when it came back that his DNA was 5 octillion to 1 match, that it's Bryan Kohberger's, that told me that DNA sample was strong enough to have a match that way. It was not as small as described. It was not deteriorated or any of the things that was mentioned. And at that point, I was like, they got him. I went from he might actually beat this to this guy has no chance. No chance. And then when the alibi and all that other stuff started coming out, and then the way and manner in which the defense is trying their case, or trying his defense, is just, to me, example after example of guilty tactics. There's not something there that, like, even in the Richard Allen case, they have some, at least a story or something that they can come up with that says that it was somebody else or whatever the case may be. At this point, all we know is from the defense's side is that Bryan Kohberger wasn't him. And he was by himself driving around, supposedly, according to them, in a closed park, looking at stars on a cloudy night that was freezing. Things that don't make sense.
Exactly. And honestly, from the day that he said he was going to be exonerated up until about July-ish, when he gave us his alibi of 2023. So for about 7 months, I was on Ann Taylor's team. I thought I was going to exonerate her client right with her. And then I realized how little we had to exonerate him with and how undefendable it is. It's just, it can't even be defended. So it's just, at that point, you just got to go with common sense and jump off the crashing train. Jump off the crashing train. The train is going to fall off the tracks. It's going to be fiery and you don't want to be there.
Yeah, I had some special person in my comment section says, "Oh man, I want to know what his excuse is going to be when this case gets thrown out." I'm like, do you not see what's going on? They're trying to move the damn date up. They have it set. This guy's like not giving them any more time to do anything. It's over. They're going to start the trial. It's going to get on. He's going to have to face the piper. I mean, when the evidence is there.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one last thing, and my fiance hates it, but I'm going to tell you anyway. In one of her recent documents, she made a motion to strike the death penalty for vagueness in balancing the aggravating and mitigating factors. And what that means is that when put on the scales of justice, the little Liberty scale, that the aggravating factors need to have more weight than the mitigating factors. They have to be heavier and legally heavier in order to kill Bryan. He can't get the death penalty if the mitigating factors outweigh the aggravating factors. That's in her motion to strike the death penalty. There are mitigating factors. Bryan is such a broken person. Bryan is so effed up from life and whatever happened to him that if he is found guilty and he did this, we still shouldn't kill him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another That's another.
So I want everyone to know he's not going to be pristine. It's not going to be what you guys think he is. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Oh, no.
She's got mitigating factors that she says outweigh the aggravating ones. He's not going to be what. Oh boy, Bryan I mean, I know there's some people that are going to love him regardless, but some of his fans are going to fall off when they hear the mitigating factors, because clearly there are some. And she's saying that they're going to be heavier than the atrocity of the mess, than the propensity for future dangerousness, all those things that I think there was like 5 or 6 aggravating factors that Bill Thompson listed. Mm-hmm. And she's saying, I have factors that mitigate more heavily. So he cannot be killed. That's what she's asking for. So just know that whether he did it or he didn't do it, Bryan is a broken person.
Right. Yeah. I tried to tell everybody that a while ago. I know some of the things that he's been accused of that's not out there. I know some of the things that that has happened in other places, like for instance, Northampton Community College. I'm familiar with some of the things that have happened with the PhD students, and one in particular there in Washington State University, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, I'm familiar with quite a bit, and I've been trying.
What happened there at Northampton College is exactly what the prosecution was trying to say initiated this whole thing with the students in Idaho. So it would show up like a pattern of behavior as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And, you know, I've had a lot of people come at me saying, oh, man, you don't know anything. And I'm like, all right, hey, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to get a document dropped. Or, hey, and this happens. This is what we're going to hear. Or, hey, we're going to figure out that maybe somebody you would think close to Bryan Kohberger that would, you know, maybe back him up ends up not being the case come trial. And yet it's like some people refuse to see it. But once it comes out in their face, I want to see how they're going to act with the egg on their face. It's going to be crazy. It'll be crazy. Mm-hmm. But Jasmine, I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Let's let everybody know where they can find you. I do have it in the title of the show. So all you got to do is just click on the title. It says at Forensic Frenzy. And you should be able to find her channel pretty quickly. It looks like this. Let me put us back in. There we go. So this is Forensic Frenzy. Videos. There it is. Yeah. See, I was just watching this one. I haven't seen this one yet.
I just put that up.
Gotcha. Make sure you go watch this and follow this one. This one's simply a fallen hero. This one's about.
I've gotten some comments from people on that are like, this is completely different footage than I've seen in the past. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that. You know, one thing that I had seen on the Kopacka story real quick. I thought one of his friends that came out saying that his phone was wiped and they suspected that was the police department. If he was on drugs, like you mentioned, if he was buying things and he thought that he was getting caught and they were going to go through his phone, wouldn't you clear it? Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. So just some other things to say, hey, I understand, you know, if you jump too quick, you see something, you jump too quick, you're going to jump the gun, you're going to end up landing with egg on your face. If you take a seat back, realize, why would this person do that? Why would the police do that? Find out this guy's doing drugs, he's on meth at certain points. Obviously, he's had some problems legality and mentally. And so there you go. There it is. Mm-hmm. But yes, go check this out. Go check out Forensic Frenzy and give her a like, give her a subscribe. Let her know that you found her from the Drunk Turkey Show. Let's get those DTS external links going up.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel. And thank you guys. I can actually see your comments, but I cannot, for some reason, I can't join the chat. I can't like log in, even though I'm logged into StreamYard. So I can't type back to you guys, but I see them all. And I thank you guys all.
Yes. Yes. Thank you again for joining. We got to do this again. For everybody else, you guys have a great night. I'll be back this weekend. If you want to be a member to watch that, hit the join button. If you're on iPhone, there's a link in the description that says become a member. Also, while you're there, the link to the GoFundMe for the Goncalves family pinned in the comment section, pinned in the live chat. It's also in the description. Until next time, guys, you guys have a great night. Be safe. We'll see you this weekend. Peace.
Good night, guys.